I've spent so much of my life living out of suitcases. Sometimes it was for holidays with my parents and brothers, but mostly it was for work conferences. Because of that job, I've traveled all over the States. It feels like I'm checking into a new hotel every 3 months. The first time I ever heard of the Red Lady Hotel, it was in a memo my boss dropped on my desk. Long story short, I had to fly out to Seattle on a Tuesday to handle some business with our partners. I tried to get myself pumped up about traveling across the country again. Basically, I was doing it so some rich guys could feel satisfied with their deals. But, to be fair, they paid me really well for it. The next night, just a few minutes past midnight, I pushed open the door to room 415. The hinges let out a loud screech as I entered. This was going to be my home for a while. I stepped inside and flipped the switch. At first glance, it didn't look any different from all the other places I'd stayed in. I tossed my bag onto the luggage rack and flopped down on the bed. My plan was just to play some games on my phone until I drifted off. As I looked around the room, I noticed a painting hanging on the wall right across from the bed. It was a picture of a blonde woman in a bright red dress. When I looked closer, I could see it was painted really well, but there was something just wrong about the woman. Her hands were twisted behind her back in a totally unnatural way, and her stance was weird. It looked like she was about to run right out of the frame and grab me. There was something unsettling about her face, too. She looked angry, but she was smiling. I could see every single one of her teeth, and they were impossibly white. When I walked up to the painting, I got this creepy feeling that her eyes were following me. It made me pretty nervous. Why would a hotel put something like that in a guest room? I decided to take it down, so I lifted the frame off the hook. I leaned it against the baseboard, facing the wall. I didn't want it falling on me while I was asleep. Then, I climbed back into bed. As soon as I lay down, I heard a crinkling sound underneath me. I pulled back the covers and found a sheet of blue paper I hadn't noticed before. It had a headline across the top. "Welcome to the Red Lady Hotel." The text underneath said they hoped I would enjoy the service, but listed some rules I needed to know to keep things pleasant and safe. Then came the list. 1. Don't break anything in the room, and don't move the furniture. It makes it hard for our staff to clean. If you break this rule, you'll get hit with an extra fee. 2. Do not use the room for romantic hookups. The staff really hates cleaning up after that. There's a motel down the street for that kind of thing. 3. Don't leave the TV on all night. We have to save on electricity bills. 4. Don't leave open food lying around. It attracts rats, and they have a really strong sense of smell. Pack your food in containers and keep it in the fridge or the cabinet. 5. Don't leave your room between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. That's when our staff cleans the halls and the lobby. Don't worry, they won't wake you up. 6. If the room phone rings at 4:14 in the morning, do not answer it. 7. Don't trash the room. It's a pain for us to clean up, and it really irritates the staff. 8. Close the curtains at night. We've had issues with people on the street looking into the windows. 9. Between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m., you might hear a child's voice in the hallway begging for help. It is very important that you do not open the door, and do not leave your room. Truly, nobody actually needs help at that hour. 10. If you see a nurse in the lobby with long blonde hair wearing a red uniform, do not stare. Look away immediately, return to your room, and notify the staff. Just so you know, our actual uniforms are light blue. Do not try to speak to the nurse in red. 11. If that nurse blocks your path to your room, turn around and go back to the lobby. 12. She will not follow you unless you make eye contact. If you lock eyes with her, she takes that as an invitation. 13. If you see a button in the elevator labeled Basement 2, do not press it. There are no basement levels in this hotel. 14. If you accidentally press that button, do not get off on that floor. Do not look out the open doors, and do not talk to anyone getting on the elevator. Stand right in front of the button panel, so nobody else can press anything. Keep your head down and hit the button for the lobby. As soon as you get out, go straight to the front desk and tell them what happened. Remember, do not look out the door and do not speak to anyone entering from basement 2. 15. Stay away from room 414 if the door is open. Even if you hear someone inside calling your name, do not go near it, and do not try to close the door. Call the staff immediately so they can handle it. That room is supposed to stay closed forever. Thank you for choosing the Red Lady Hotel. We hope you have a great stay. And please, remember to follow the rules. Sincerely, the management. What the hell was this? Was it some dumb prank by bored employees messing with the guests? I was about to call the front desk and chew them out for this stupid joke, but then I glanced at the cheap alarm clock on the table. It was nearly 12:30. I'm not the type to bug people in the middle of the night, so I decided to let it slide until morning. I'd deal with it before my meeting. I took a deep breath, realizing I had to be up at 4 a.m. anyway to get ready. It's a good thing I caught a nap on the flight over. I started getting ready for bed. Once I was under the covers, I couldn't stop thinking about that piece of paper. I had crumpled it up and tossed it on the floor by the trash can. It sounds crazy, but I couldn't shake the creepy feeling those rules gave me. I squeezed my eyes shut, then popped them open again when I realized I'd already broken the first rule. I had moved the picture. I sat up and looked at the wall across from me. Even in the dark, I could see the painting was hanging up again. A cold chill ran down my spine. The woman in the red dress looked closer than she was before. Her face was even more twisted. I immediately squeezed my eyes shut and pulled the blanket up over my head. I was sure I hadn't touched it after I took it down. Was I losing it? Even if the rules were a prank, I was still rattled. I told myself I must have been so exhausted that I hung it back up without thinking and just forgot. I'd definitely talked to the receptionist about it in the morning. At 1:12 a.m., a strange noise woke me up. It sounded like something was knocking on the window. That didn't make any sense. My room was on the 4th floor. I was terrified. The only thing I could think to do was hide under the covers. I didn't want to know what was out there. Eventually, I tried to convince myself it was just a tree branch hitting the glass. Once I calmed down a little, I climbed out of bed. I tried not to look at the painting as I walked toward the window, but I could feel that blonde woman in the red dress watching me. I could feel her watching me as I crossed the room. The rhythmic knocking didn't stop. I grabbed the edge of the curtain and yanked it open without thinking. God, I wish I hadn't done that. I didn't expect to see a face pressed against the glass. It looked like rotting meat. The thing smiled at me, showing off a mouthful of jagged brown teeth. Its eyes locked right onto mine. I froze. Long, crooked fingers tapped against the pane. I had convinced myself it was just a tree branch, so seeing a zombie clinging to the outside of a 4th-floor window was too much. I screamed and scrambled backward, falling onto the floor. There was no balcony out there. There was nowhere to stand. Unless this creep was Spider-Man, there was no way he should be able to reach my window. I scrambled for the phone and dialed the front desk number listed on the notepad. Red Lady Hotel, front desk. How can I help you? Listen, there is some freak knocking on my window. I'm on the 4th floor. Ma'am, please review the rule sheet in your room. Rule number 8 states you must keep your curtains closed. I know what it says, but I'm 4 stories up. Height doesn't stop them from looking in. And since you revealed yourself, they'll be knocking all night. Please follow the rest of the rules. Good night. The line went dead. I slammed the receiver down, cursing under my breath. I grabbed the rule sheet and read it over and over until my head spun. Finally, I tossed it on the nightstand and hid under the covers. The clock read 1:46 a.m. when the tapping started again. I was terrified. I pulled the blanket tight over my head and tried to sleep, but it was impossible. The knocking didn't stop until sunrise. When my alarm blasted at 4 a.m., I nearly jumped out of my skin. I got dressed in record time. I checked the clock. It was 4:13 a.m. Safe to leave. Suddenly, the room phone rang. The clock clicked over to 4:14. I didn't answer. I grabbed my bag and bolted. Once I was outside, I looked up at my window. The creature was gone. And just like I thought, there wasn't a single tree anywhere near the building. My meeting actually went well, but I dragged my feet on the way back. I even called my boss and begged him to move me to a different hotel. He shut me down immediately. He said the cancellation fees were too high and the Red Lady was the only place that fit the budget. So, I was stuck in this hellhole until tomorrow afternoon. I stayed out as long as I could, finally walking back into the lobby at 10 p.m. I asked the front desk if there were any other rooms available, but of course, the whole place was booked solid. Stepping into the elevator, it hit me that I hadn't seen a single soul besides the staff. If the place was fully booked, why was it so quiet? Where were the other guests? As the doors slid shut, I stared at the button labeled basement 2. You couldn't pay me to press that thing. Walking down the dark hallway to my room, the air felt thick, like the whole corridor was holding its breath. My room was directly across from room 414. That door was shut tight, which was a relief, but it still gave me the creeps knowing it was on the do not touch list. Just as I was closing my own door, I swear I saw a flash of bright red dart through the hallway. So here I was, stuck in the Red Lady Hotel for another night, trapped across from a haunted room, with zombies scratching at the window and a demonic painting staring at me. I reviewed the checklist in my head. Window locked. Yes. Food put away? Yes. I hadn't touched the basement button, and I hadn't answered the phone. I just had to survive until 10:30 tomorrow morning. Then I could head to the train station and get the hell out of here. At 1:54 a.m., a loud banging started on my door. The rules said not to leave between 1 and 4, but they didn't say what to do if someone came knocking. I was terrified, but I didn't bother calling the front desk. I knew they'd just blow me off and tell me to read the rule sheet again. So I sat on the bed with the lamp on, watching the door shake with every blow. Thank God for the chain lock. I stared at it for 6 long minutes until the pounding stopped exactly at 2 a.m. For the next hour, it was dead quiet. I actually thought I might get some sleep. But at 3:02 a.m., a faint muffled voice drifted in from the hallway. Mom. My heart slammed against my ribs. I remembered the rule instantly. Between 3 o'clock and 4 a.m., you might hear a child begging for help. Mom. Mom. The crying got louder. The kid was getting closer. I watched the strip of light under my door. Suddenly it went dark. Someone was standing right outside. Then came a dull thud against the wood. Excuse me? Can you help me find my mom? I'm lost. Oh hell no. This felt like some twisted video game. Why is it always a creepy kid? Miss, please open the door, I'm scared. I kept my mouth shut. I knew better. The rules were crystal clear. At this hour, nobody out there actually needs help. The voice kept begging. It was relentless. I was terrified, but I just grit my teeth and ignored it. It was getting so annoying. After 20 minutes, the voice finally stopped. I heard footsteps walking away from my door. I let out a breath, but the relief didn't last long. At 3:24 a.m., something slammed against my window. I jumped, but I got a grip pretty fast. It was just my buddy, the zombie Spider-Man. I stared at the curtains. Weirdly enough, I wasn't that scared this time. I figured if I didn't look at the zombie, he'd get bored and leave. To be honest, the painting on the wall bothered me way more than the guy outside. Eventually, the knocking stopped. The rest of the hour was silent. I used the time to pack my suitcase. I hadn't really unpacked much anyway. You can guess why. By 4:02 a.m., I was done. I sat there waiting for the 4:14 a.m. phone call. But the phone stayed silent. I still had a long wait until 10:30, so I didn't let my guard down. Finally, at 10 a.m., I peeked into the hallway. It was quiet. I grabbed my stuff, left the room, and locked the door behind me. I glanced at room 414. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years. I breathed a sigh of relief and headed down the dark hall. I was almost at the elevator when I heard a loud click behind me. It was the distinct sound of a lock turning. I froze. Without thinking, I turned around. Room 414 was wide open. Standing right there was the nurse in the red uniform. I recognized her instantly. It was the woman from the painting. The one with the twisted face who had been watching me sleep for 2 nights. She was smiling that same unnatural, white-toothed smile. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her dead eyes locked right onto mine. It felt like she was about to sprint down the hall at me. I remembered the rule. If you see the nurse in red staring at you, look away immediately and notify staff. I averted my eyes. I stepped into the elevator and reached for the button, desperate to leave. Then another rule flashed in my mind. If the nurse blocks you, use the stairs. Do not use the elevator. I yanked my hand back from the panel and bolted for the stairwell. I ran down all 4 flights, lugging my heavy suitcase the whole way. As I reached the ground floor, I heard footsteps thumping down the stairs above me. The nurse won't chase you unless you make eye contact. Had I looked at her too long? Was she coming for me? I burst into the lobby and slammed the stairwell door shut behind me. I marched up to the front desk and practically threw my key at them. The 2 clerks smiled at me. One asked in a slow, creepy voice, "We hope you enjoyed your stay." "Room 414 is open," I hissed. "I thought you should know." I didn't wait for an answer. I ran outside and dove into my waiting taxi. I didn't even say hello to the driver or bother putting my bag in the trunk. I just needed to go. I threw myself into the back seat. As we drove through the lot, I realized there were only 2 cars parked there. Every other spot was empty. They claimed the hotel was full last night, so where was everybody? In 2 days, I hadn't seen a single guest. Just the creepy staff. I twisted around for one last look at the building. Something red was standing in my 4th floor window. It looked like it was waving at me. Thankfully, the taxi turned the corner, and the hotel disappeared. Then I remembered the rule. A long look is accepted by her as an invitation. Crap. Did I stare too long? It was just a quick glance. I didn't even mean to do it. What counts as a long look? Anyway, would she have followed me if I wasn't in a moving car? I really hope I never find out.